Artsy sister, and we're continuing with Saturnastra, Deasura. This is chapter 19. Month 1, day 6, year 7. The ship repairs are finally complete, and now if only I could find a complete crew to go along with it, then we can get on to business. I have been pressured by my companions to set sail already or to hire someone, and for the last 2 weeks Mary has been visiting me with the same question, and this time she pestered me while I was practicing the sea snake dance with leaves. And she yelled at me, "Are we going to set sail today?" Not stopping, I yelled back, "Don't you ever get tired of asking the same question? And we will leave when I say we leave." "But I fear our senses will get dull through idleness," remarked Mary. "Honestly, 99% of the time you spend at sea is spent in idleness. And if you are so eager to see some action, why don't you just join the army or a mercenary corps?" I said, stopping to answer her. "I might just do that. And just what are you looking for in sailors? Honestly, any random goon could fill whatever position remains," commented Mary. And her eyes seemed to glow with much intensity, and she reminded me a bit of a black cat we had back at home, and the way Mary languidly wandered about as if she were walking over mud, trying to avoid dirtying her little shoes, was something that was very similar to the movements of my Giaconda, her cat. "I could say the same thing about you, my dear Mary," I said, coming closer to speak with her. "No need to get so testy, my dear Captain. It was only a suggestion, not an order," said Mary coolly, and she had grown accustomed to my occasional ribbing. "You get paid regardless, and if you're worried about your skills stalling, why don't you ask Gentilius to spar with you?" I suggested. "Meh, unlike your boy toy, I do not have a death wish, and his matches always have a way of resembling a battle to the death, and frankly, I'm not in the mood to get him mauled to an inch of my life," answered Mary. "How about Rudolph? He's pretty handy with his Gale Borgard," I suggested. "He won't battle. When he's not sparring, he's head deep in his stones, and when he's not studying or eating, he's passed out from exhaustion," commented Mary, and she added, "Maybe you can lend me your sandalets. He seems like a hardy fellow." "He is not my sandalets, and I can't just lend him to you. He is his own person, and a god at that. So at least show him a bit of respect to the fellow," I said, frowning. "He is your god, not my god. And as far as canon is concerned, he's just another demon," said Mary, unconvinced. At this point, Leaf said, "You can call things whatever you want, but at the core, gods and demons will always act upon their true nature, and calling one by another one's name will not change that. You cannot deify a demon just as the same way as you cannot demonize a god." Mary was thoughtful for some time and leave it to a priest to get people thinking about gods and the afterlife, and in the end I lent Sandalus to spar with the girl, and the battle against Mary was not too awe-inspiring. She was just under the impression that he would fight her with the equitable human strength, and not lay her flat on the ground with a solid stroke of his wooden sword club. And it was like a wooden double-edged sword with a short hilt, and the edges were grooved, and inside there were obsidian stone knives. And with one swing of his blade, Sandalus sliced through Mary's bright steel blade, and then with the flat wooden part of the sword he struck her senseless in the forehead, and he had held back the final blow since it was tradition in his land not to kill the enemy in battle but to save them for much grander purposes. And even if he had done a direct blow, the wound would not have cut deep into the meat, and it was much stronger when used against metals. Sandalus frowned as the obsidian blades shattered, and using his powers the blade spun new crystal to replace the ones it had lost. And it was a sort of sharp weapon that was useless against heavy armor, though as a club it had its charms. And when Mary came to, she had Sandalus show her his weapon. And indeed she too saw the statutory limitations of this wooden club, and she could not see the importance of using a weapon that was purposely designed not to kill. I then told Mary, "I guess you never heard of human sacrifices." "I thought that was just an elf thing," responded Mary, putting some ice on her wounded forehead. "Nah, it was originally a human thing, trust me, and even without the ritualism behind it, for the most part humans die more often at the hands of their own kind," I explained. "Pity that it should be so, as other races show a more unified front, while our own kind bicker over small parcels of land," said Mary casually. "Nah, Pity that you should so easily believe in a little fib, and as long as you continue to believe this, then there can be no peace among humans, I said in mimicking her dour mood. And I left Mary alone to spar with Sandoles, and most of the fighting always took place in the deck of the ship. And aside from occupying space, there was not much else to do there. And to deal with the rat problems, Farah had enlisted the help of two famous Mouser cats, and at least they advertised themselves as famous cats. And while Farah and Baby were asking about the cats, the pair saw the Mouser cats making quick work of their prey in the market. And they were not hunting for food, but for sports. And from time to time, humans tried feeding them in appreciation, but the high and mighty cats would refuse any food that was not fresh. And if a fly happened to buzz near their fish, the cats would refuse to eat it. The first was a Doskoy or hairless cat of an undetermination, and when I asked him his name, he thought a moment and then ominously meowed. Zombie barked. Cats only meow to communicate with humans, or when they are kittens. The other was a 9-month honey strip faultless cat, and before he could pick a name, Zombie Bar said with an authoritative hiss, "Your name is now Sissy Sam." And not one to argue, Sissy Sam nodded and went along with what Zombie Bar had ordained. And since their arrival, the ship had been free of mice, termites, and other vermin. And aside from this service, the pair provided a relief to the tedium that had become our stationary life in the port of Damas. And whenever we wanted to or not, it was not safe to live with unnecessary numbers. And since the final members were not appearing, I decided to take a more proactive approach. Month 3, Day 11, Year 7. Today, while swimming in the cold waters, Anchor came out to me, and it was unusual for him to seek me out, and trailing behind was something unusual, and it was not unusual for him to be trailed by strange marine creatures. And after all, he was their guardian, and there was something familiar about this creature. It had a strange glowing of a cuttlefish with pectoral fins of a shark and the extremities of a turtle. It seemed alive and healthy despite its odd appearance, and it ate plankton like other bait fishes, and when the hunters came over universally were taken aback by its chimeric appearance and odd light show. It was then when I took it into my arms that the armband began to resonate, and painted over its skin were the markings of my armband. And the gift produced by my father was most unusual. Whenever ownership of it was abandoned, it tended to find a new host by random chance. So unlike my most old forsaken items, it did not remain forsaken very long. This, whatever it used to be, had found a fragment of my rose and made the most of its mysterious powers. And when the bizarre fish came into contact with me, it resonated with my own rose, and then the fish was able to acquire a humanoid form. Like flakes, the scales and bars peeled back, revealing a person of grand stature with black eyes, and the humanoid back had a dorsal ridges, and from the top of his skin was black with white spots, and starting from the mouth and down the front of his body, it was white with gray spots, and this color shading applied to the limbs, and it had a flat nose and a small lipless mouth, and no ears, and the bald head had a pink spot on the forehead, and around his neck and a portion of the back, it had a golden writing printed upon it. And even with its mass rearrangement, the creature still weighed a staggering 1,500 pounds, and in its new form it was 3 meters long, and at the moment I came to realize how irresponsible it was for me to forsake the rose my father had so carefully crafted for me. And it was a wonder just how many creatures I had warped as a result of my negligence. And guessing my thoughts, Anchor guided towards me another creature that was not the way it should be, and this one was just a little fluffy scale ball or whatever. And it had only one eye that stared coolly back at me, and like my new companion, this one was left alone by the other marine creature, which could not see it as food. After touching it, this one attained a humanoid form as well. Unlike my creepy companion, this one was only 5 centimeters high. 50. This one tried to mimic my current form more to the point, and the head feathers morphed into golden strands that resembled hair, and the nose was small, and it had a red lips and a girly face, and the areas around the eyes were black, as if she was an Egyptian goddess of some sort, and she peeled back her wings to reveal hands, and with the top of them black and the bottom of them white. and the back of her tail retained her bird-like appendages with the short white feathers in the back and 2 long feathers, and following the harpy logic from the knee down, the feet tucked back into a bird. However, this one had the feet webbed like a duck. It was then when Anchor started guiding to me another one of these creatures that I realized that this was going to be a thing. And it was not so much as he was trying to be of help, rather he was answering a call deep within inside my new companions. They were lonely and were yearning for another one of their kind to be around with, and it was then I decided to return to my ship, and I showed my new companions to Sasha and Jura, both in as in too impressed by this turn of event, and they commented casually, "Your brother Ahi came here recently, and I do not know what he wanted or what he was saying, and he left you a care package from your father." Jura handed me the package, and indeed it was a new set of robes as I asked for, and unlike the other ones, this one had a blue coloring, and it also had a sleeve cut, and I set about stitching my armband to the loose sleeve to the new robes, and repairing the robe was not the same as patching up an old shirt. The twins observed with curiosity interest the rituals and the alchemy involved in the restoration of the old robes, and some were real and the others were just for show, since I didn't want to show them the entire ritual. Since they were fresh rolls, I had to leave them out under the moonlight to power them up, and when night came I had my rolls around the other sails. And close to midnight, Rudolph visited the ship, and since we'd been dark for so long, most of my crew had taken residency in town, and he grimaced when he saw the giant weirdo. And he said casually, "Are you going to put some clothing on your new pet?" Feeling himself insulted, the man slowly turned his head to glare at Rudolph, and then slowly went back to enjoying his bowl of jellyfishes. And Rudolph studied the creature with interest, and while the creature studied Rudolph, and it was only when he stood on his 2 legs that Rudolph was able to admire the creature's height. And the wood groaned with the waves of such a large thing in one spot, and he gave one step, but the uneven movement of the ship caused it to trip and dent the floor a bit. And moaning, Judah exclaimed, "I just had that floor repaired." "Pity, but why put so much effort into a ship that would never set sail?" commented Zombie Bar, entering the deck. Zombie Bar was the cat. Apparently Sissy Sama told Zombie Bar of their new arrival, and he started licking himself while staring at the bizarre creature with the odd grooves on his back, and Zombie Bar was focused on it that he failed to notice the little harpy-looking bird perched beside him. And when he noticed, he jumped backwards and he did a flip before falling from the railing, and embarrassed, he ran downstairs into the cargo bay. As the night progressed, she started getting more populated by my companions, and they were drawn to the bizarre leatherback man and the harpy-looking bird, and since names were much more important to human, I explained through gestures to my friend that they had to go by something. And the leatherback man gargled and groaned, and he started rubbing his neck as the vocal cords started to manifest. In the end, I was surprised when he said in perfect English, "You may call me Delut." In answer to everyone's surprise and glances, he said, "I had enough of your language to understand it. The speaking it might take some time." "You don't say," commented Clarissa, impressed. "It seems to me that you already have a strong mastery of our tongue," commented Mary. "I'm a quick learning nurse," said Delut. And as for the little bird girl, this was not much progress in the way of speaking, and she was a juvenile of her species, so we were not in a hurry to name herself. And as with Moses, my crew started to suggest different names, and the name she ended up responding to was Martha. Alright, that's the end of this chapter. Bye-bye, and God bless. Now.